Good morning, afternoon, evening, good night, sleepy time, whatever. How is everyone? Greetings to, and I keep on changing the times, but greetings to people I see. StreamYard, Korean Un. I wish I could say that correctly. William Collins and Renee Dennis, or if that's correct. I don't even know, Renee, am I saying your last name correct? I hope I am. I'm going to babble a little bit so people can join us, and I will, of course, send this out again when I get a chance, so everybody will get a chance to see this. Hope everybody is enjoying their weekend. We're going to talk. Guess what we're going to talk about today? We're going to talk about GTII. Shocking, but we're going to talk about that. And I got several topics to discuss. We will get to it. I'm just blabbing a little bit so some more people can join in. I'm going to see who else is here as I go to my right. So I go to my Republican side. Hello, Boston. Hello, Scott. Hello, Narad Wells. The One. Hothead 62. Leader Landscape Inc. Very nice name. Dustin White. Amby. And Lee Willis. Hey, Lee. Hope everybody's well. Greetings. Let's kind of hit it before we get started. Let's see if I can read my own jokes here. Oh, yeah. So this, the lawyer asks the deponent. So we're going to talk a little about depositions. Let me go with what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Renee's thing. I'm going to talk about. He asked me to, and I will. We're going to talk about Oliphant and Markowitz. We're going to talk about Rabari's deposition. We're going to talk about an upcoming hearing and whatever other nonsense I can think about. Before I get started on that stuff, the attorney at a deposition asks the witness, "Is your appearance here this morning pursuant to a deposition notice which I sent to your attorney?" Answer, "No, this is how I dress for work." How do you get a group of lawyers to smile for a photo? Just say fees. I can't even read my own lining. Why don't lawyers go to the beach? Because cats keep trying to bury them. Okay. I finally could read my own writing. What do honest lawyers and UFOs have in common? We always hear about them, but nobody's ever seen one. Anyway, just going to jump right into it. Just right into this, if I could figure out what I'm doing here and I could find what I was looking for. All right. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, and I saw him, he's in the comment section, so greetings to Renee, is there's a group of GTI shareholders. I think Renee is the point person, putting a group together to participate, to basically to try to have a say in what goes on in the future. And I think they have close to, at least I saw the reference to, they might have like 50 shareholders, and as a group, they're trying to get a attorney in Vegas to kind of give them a ability to kind of appear and participate, because it's hard for individuals to participate. A judge is much more likely to take an attorney representing a bunch of people seriously, and much more if it's a respected Las Vegas attorney who has also prior interactions with the court. So with that in mind, Renee and others, I think others have been involved, but Renee reached out to me, want to spread out. So anybody who's might be interested in joining the group, reach out to Renee or look on X for any postings about this. and feel free to contact them. Now, the relevance of that is there will be a court hearing with the receiver reporting on the status of everything in court on January 14th, 2026. Hard to believe it's already 2026, or we're just about there. At 1:30 p.m. in Department 16 in the court in Las Vegas, the downtown court in the 8th Judicial District. I think it's the 8th Judicial District or the 8th District. And I think the idea is for that particular hearing to have counsel represent that group and the individuals of that group so that they could, one, be there and talk to the judge about what's going on, or at least participate and maybe talk to other counsel, the receiver, etc., and more in a stronger position for shareholders' interest to be considered. And I've had some interaction with Renee. I hope Renee is a male. I've never seen him or spoken to him directly, but I find him to be very credible and very interested in shareholders and their interest, along with many others. So if that's an interest of yours, please reach out to him and let him know your interest. And I know they're trying to get a group together because they have to put a pot together to hire counsel. So reach out to him if you're interested. If you're not interested, don't reach out. But reach out if you're interested. I think he's legit, credible, interested in shareholders along with the people he's with. So go for it. I think it's just more of wanting to assert shareholder interests. So I think that's really interesting. Before I go on, so I'll leave that. Reach out, or you don't have to reach out. But if you do, I think he's good, and I'll leave it as such. Before I go on, talking about the deposition of Mr. Rabari, I was thinking about this, and I've thought about this many times. So I'm watching this show. This is kind of completely unrelated, but I'm watching two things that stood out for me. One, I see a bunch of cop shows. I forgot which cop show it was, but they end up arresting somebody, and they're interrogating him, and they're trying to get him to take a deal. And it may be the case that they should take the deal, at least factually. And the way they present it is they turn down the deal and they get convicted, but they don't show the sentencing. So there's no correlation between the deal and what the punishment is. So anyway, from a lawyer's perspective, that caught my attention. So because they don't say they kind of imply by refusing the deal, they got convicted and had to serve time, but they don't indicate that they might get less time because the judge might give them less time. Because as we can see from sentencing, this is now editorializing, from sentencing, the judges give whatever they think is appropriate within guidelines, and it may be a lot less than we think is appropriate. So that's where that stands. That's about that. The other part was I watched the other show I was watching was an FBI show. It's called The FBI, as a matter of fact. And this happens also in the police shows, but especially in the FBI show, they're chasing some really bad guy, and they have 4 people. So they have no extra people there to block off streets, to barricade houses, to remove people, etc. And every time I see these big scenes in real life, there's hundreds of cops and manpower to block off. In these shows, the bad guy always gets away because they only have 3 people going after a mass murderer. Seems ridiculous to me. I wish they would show that accurately. Just my particular concern. I attended, or at least I saw, a court hearing. I was on Zoom, so I attended the court hearing brought by, so a motion was brought by Oliphant, who's a former attorney, apparently of GTII, that seems to be the case, representing Markowitz's entity, and representing all others, apparently, or seeking relief from all others from the share freeze. So what they did is they filed a motion seeking all the frozen shares to be unfrozen so that everybody could trade them. I'm not a big fan of that. I think the reason they were frozen is because at least there was some suspicion that they should be, and the judge agreed, and the judge makes those calls. So if the judge makes the call, then we go with it. So they're contesting that. They file a motion, and then on top of that, then the attorney for Markowitz, Dylan Siciliano, filed a motion to disqualify Oliphant from representing Markowitz CYA because of his prior relationship with GTII, and perhaps his, at least that was the argument that was presented, perhaps that he'd been given confidential information about GTII, and then therefore is a disclosure. And if you're preparing lawsuits for a company, realistically, you're going to gain access to all kinds of information. I think also he represented Reichman in a deposition. Therefore, he would also have been, at least in my opinion, exposed to, or potentially exposed to, confidential information. So that motion was heard last week, today, I think Thursday of last week. Oliphant and Markowitz appeared in court along with others, and Dylan Siciliano. And by the way, I try to be fair, and I think Dylan is a very good attorney and is doing as far as depositions, etc. Even though if I don't really like them all together, I think he's doing a very competent job, and so I again try to be fair. I try to also, I think I sent him a bunch of questions for the last deposition. He may have used some, may not, but anyway, I spent some time and gave him some questions. But at the hearing, Oliphant and Markowitz showed up, and I had not seen either before. And let me just say that, in my opinion, they didn't make a great appearance. And if that was the great legal talent leading GTII, it makes sense. That's where GTII is today. The court heard the arguments. The judge is trying to be very careful. Again, this judge is very well respected. I think he does a good job. He I think, likes the records to be complete so that he doesn't get reversed on appeal. So, like for this motion, where they're trying to disqualify the attorneys, there were follow-up depositions that were going to occur, and he wanted the record supplemented, I think, so that if somebody appealed the disqualification, which somebody might, that if it goes up on appeal, the appellate court will say there's an adequate record, and they won't get pissed off at the judge and reverse. So as it turned out, I think it was Thursday, on Monday, there's the deposition of Oliphant, and on Tuesday, Markowitz, and I think on the 17th, there's another attorney deposition. And there was a deposition of Rabari also. I think he testified about Oliphant also drafting a complaint, is my recollection, which might mean that he was actively representing GTII. Now, I don't know if that was accurate. I don't remember the specific language, but it seemed like there was some representation that Oliphant had drafted a complaint that maybe I think he said that he hadn't drafted, he provided, I guess he discussed it in Rabari's deposition. He seemed to suggest that he prepared it, although again, I don't think it was specific, and I don't recall the specific language, but it certainly gave me the impression, and I think it gave Dylan the impression that he had actually prepared the complaint. And again, the issue is whether he represented GTII, and also did he get confidential information? So the deposition of Oliphant will be Monday, and I will attend at least part of that. Markowitz will be Tuesday, and I will attend at least part of that. It'll be interesting to see what is said, and we'll go from there. I also attended, I think, about 5 hours of the deposition of Mr. Rabari, and I'll give you my impressions as to what I heard and just my interpretations. And this is just my impressions, my opinions, my interpretations. I haven't seen the transcript because it hasn't been drafted yet. And so this is my view of what occurred. And there were some exhibits, and he had a timeline, and it seemed like in about July of 2023, he was introduced to some guy named Fabian who knew Reichman and who was a shareholder of GTII. And he was introduced to Reichman, and from that led up to his involvement with GTII. Apparently, he conditioned his acceptance of working with GTII based upon and subject to getting full autonomy. Seemed like his testimony was that Reichman wanted him to focus on deals, but Rabari wanted to clean up GTII because he saw issues, like we all see issues with GTII. So David would be pushing him one way, and he wanted to do cleanup. He indicated that I think he indicated that at no point, I think it was at no point, could be wrong, I think he said this, at no point did he have access to the bank accounts. So he's kind of kept on. And part of that was because David was ruling the roost. I think that was the strong implication. It also suggested that between he and David, that they were at odds and that they weren't on good terms, and saw things differently. He believes that, this is now referring to Mr. Rabari, he believes he was responsible for canceling approximately, or getting the return of, approximately 56 million shares. 36 million were that the cancellation of director and officer shares, and that's approximately 36 million, and 20 million for that deal that got canceled, the AI commerce deal. He believes that he was responsible for bringing those 20 million shares back, although Dylan seemed to suggest that the shares are still kind of in limbo, so he hadn't brought them back. But I think that Mr. Rabari was trying to show that what he had accomplished during his time at GTII. He focused, and again, I'm trying to be fair, and this is tough for me, but I'm trying to be fair. His testimony was that from the start, I think, starting when he was a consultant, it seemed like, because he was a consultant starting in December of 2023, then he became COO, Chief Operating Officer, and I think that was back, there was a contract, and then it became effective earlier. I think it might have been April of 2024, and then he became CEO, and then the receiver took over. The complaint was filed, I think, June of 2024. The receiver took over in September of 2024. But anyway, when he first started, he focused on the shorts, the Alpine issue. He had so, for a lot of people are interested in this, so you have to give him props for doing this. He focused on the shorts because everybody had heard about the concentrated short position, although it was unclear. I think it was unclear ultimately, what that was. He apparently a FOIA request was submitted, but nothing was returned that kind of clarified things. I think he said, if I recall, that and I don't know if it was he or others, reached out to brokerages and they tried to get things going. But that was kind of the first item that he focused on. He didn't seem particularly, and again, this is my opinion, he didn't seem particularly well-versed on the downlisting. He seemed to refer in the deposition testimony when asked about the expert market, but was actually the pink sheets. And I don't think his focus was on the downlisting. At least it didn't seem to be from his testimony. He talked about the Trento deal. He was not impressed with the deal. I don't remember his exact terminology, but he was willing to quickly move off of that. He talked about, apparently, so there's an email, the guys that were involved with Trento, and remember, I think there was 2 Trento deals. There was Trento 1 and then Trento 2 with Michelangelo and his, I think it's his former partner, not his current partner. And I met with Michelangelo once, and apparently at some point in time, more than apparently, they sent out something to representatives of GTII on my behalf, even though they didn't have any authority to do that. I reamed them for doing that, and I never had any agreement with them or any understanding. Never received any compensation, nor was I interested in. But I was interested in hearing about what was going on because I figured the more information, the better. And then, if you recall, so somehow, if the implication is that I was somehow working with Trento, if you watch that one video that JR and I did with the Trento guys, where there's a still picture of Michelangelo's shirt, because we were just going after them for what we perceived that wasn't a real deal after we heard from them in detail. So to say that I was somehow aligned with those guys is kind of proven false just by the video, where we basically completely cut the deal to shreds and really put the focus on them. There was also like another reference, and I'm just referring to it. There was another reference to Astra Energy. I think Ron Loudon is the gentleman's name. And we were trying to, at that time, I think it was September of 2023, JR and I did a video with him and with another gentleman, I think Frank Benedetto, I think was the other gentleman. And it was more about toxic debt. I think it related to MMTLP. And I think Ham had been talking about it, about toxic debt. Others had been talking about it. And that was kind of the focus on that. And I guess it turns out, and I think the receiver is pursuing that, or is in negotiations or something, is that there was some deal between Astra and GTII, some financial transaction. And I don't think, or according to what the receiver and what Mr. Rabari said, there'd been no payoff. And Rabari thought the receiver should pursue Astra Energy and pursue the company itself, not just the money. I know that in the receiver's reports, they've referenced going after. But anyway, the September 2023 video we did, and we did one, was focused on, I think even the title talks about it, toxic debt. Somehow there was suggestion, I don't even know what the suggestion was. Somehow there was suggestion that somehow JR and I were connected to Astra Energy because we showed one video where the guys were talking about the toxic debt and what the company did. Not true, but that came up during the deposition too. His compensation package came up, and this is my interpretation of what he said. He said, and I think he per the contract he got, he was entitled to a whole bunch of shares over time, but he got the first year something on the order, it was either 4 or 8, I believe it was 8 million shares. And I think the way he presented it, that the day, if even based upon signing that agreement, even if he would have quit the next day, he would have been entitled to the full 8 million shares. As to the other shares, I don't know if he gave a specific answer, but as to the 8 million, he thought per the contract he was entitled to the shares. And there was some discussion about that during the deposition. Besides myself, which he spent about 2.5 hours. So the deposition was 5.5 hours. I think he spent probably 2.5 hours on me. He certainly does not like me. Had a hard on me, and spoke about it literally half the time. I think on one point in time, later in the deposition, Dylan, when asking a question, prefaced it by saying, other than Hoffman, blank, because literally every time he had a chance, because he knew I was there, and had a free shot and I could not respond, he would throw it out and reference it. So Dylan would ask at least one question where he said, exclude Hoffman and speak direct to the other thing. So he spent a lot of time on me. I wish, perhaps maybe energies would have been better used in other places during GTII, but be that as it may, he indicated that besides me, he had a personal issue, but in terms of with GTII, I think he found, and he specifically said that the bad guys, and I don't think he used that terminology, were David Reichman and Todd Chisholm. Todd Chisholm apparently was in charge of GTI Gold. So there's GTII, and then there's a subsidiary, a wholly owned subsidiary, I think that's what he said, which is GTI Gold. And he thought that they were responsible for the downfall of GTII. I don't know if he said it exactly that, but that was pretty much it. And those were the two characters that he focused on. He indicated that at one point in time, he hired a person named Jennifer as a confidential investigator in January 24. Now, Dylan, in discussing this person or the investigation, said that he had reached out to that person, and I guess their communication was not very pleasant. She apparently got paid from GTII, although it was not clear whether it was GTII or Rabari. Apparently got paid $5,000 plus some amount of shares, maybe 10,000 shares. And she was confidential, and she was snooping around. So I think she was, with regard to GTII, she might have been with regard to MMTLP. I don't know precisely what she did. She did reference, or at least there was some reference to her watching William Ferrand's channel and commenting about some stuff that he had mentioned. And apparently, or at least that was during the deposition, apparently her husband was involved. Rabari wanted to give her credit. So January 24 wanted to give her credit for moving this, for the receivership. It was basically my interpretation of what he said, that, without her giving information to receivership, it would have made the job much more difficult. It seemed like Dylan was a little bit suspect of that, but that's my impression of his reaction. And it would be interesting to see what other information that this person gave to either the receiver or to counsel, and when, and was it appropriate for GTII to hire that? I don't know. And how was it paid? Who paid it, etc. Interesting. In general, so that's the general point. So, besides me that he hated, and he spent 2.5 hours berating for various reasons because he knew I was there and couldn't say anything. He seemed to really focus on Reichman and Chisholm, and that he was trying to clean things up. That was really his pitch. And notwithstanding whatever, I have my own feelings about him that I'll keep to myself. But notwithstanding that, his intentions, I'm not going to talk about the compensation because Dylan pushed on the 8 million shares, and that might be an issue. And Rabari seemed to be comfortable the fact that he had earned that and that he was entitled to that. But notwithstanding that, just to be fair, I thought his intentions with regard to GTI seemed okay, and that he did try to clean things up. At least it appears that from his testimony, although I don't know the full picture, so I don't know what went on. And I didn't think he gave super full answers to a lot of questions, but it seemed like his intentions were good, and he was not aligned with David's interest, did not do any of the things, certainly was responsible for helping and convincing these guys to bring back the 36 million shares. But I thought after hearing from him, I thought his intentions, notwithstanding compensation, seemed pure, and that he was interested in moving forward. So I found that to be an interesting deposition. It was like, for me, having my teeth pulled because I had to listen to him berate me for 2.5 hours. And some of it, unfortunately, because he indicated he is not a lawyer, and I don't know if he even looked at the First Amendment complaint. If you recall, he sued me for defamation. The statute of limitations is already run on that stuff anyway, and the complaint was dismissed. And also the First Amendment complaint. So I bitched about that complaint when it went out because I didn't have any quotes. So it was like somebody's interpretation of what I said. So just to give you an example, and it's this completely unrelated, but it would be somebody like saying, if I said, it's my impression, and I'm kind of guessing here, that maybe some company was unhappy with me. And then the interpretation of the person would be, Hoffman said that the company hated him. So I think there was quite a gap from what perhaps he thought I said and what the First Amendment complaint said, and there was very few quotations. And maybe the one quotation that referred to him I thought was positive. I think I called him a very qualified and experienced guy. That didn't seem to be negative, but whatever. But anyway, somebody must have told him. I doubt if he listened to all my videos, and perhaps somebody misinformed him as to what precisely I said. But anyway, he has a particular feeling, and whatever. It's kind of a side issue. It's not really important to the bigger picture about GTII. So he testified. Next week will be Oliphant and Markowitz, and we will go from there. So that's the summary. And then the hearing on January 14th, next month, which will be a status hearing and a report from the receiver, which I think will be very important. So let's review again. One, if you have interest, Renee Dennis is leading a group that will hire, or is planning on hiring, other Nevada counsel to have a foot at the table. I attended a hearing involving Oliphant and Markowitz regarding a motion to disqualify, and that's kind of being held. Final ruling is being held in abeyance until their depositions are complete and maybe more information can come out. Next week, Oliphant's deposition is Monday. Markowitz's deposition is Tuesday. The deposition of Rabari occurred. He basically placed the blame of GTII on Reichman and Chisholm. He focused on the fact that he was primarily focused on cleaning up GTII, whereas Reichman wanted a deal. And he claimed responsibility. Rabari claimed responsibility for bringing back approximately 56 million shares, 36 million that we know about, the directors and officers, and 20 million related to the AI commerce deal, although Dillon indicated that those shares haven't been returned. He talked about that he went after and tried to figure out about the concentrated short position in Alpine. And that's kind of a summary of that 5.5 hours. I don't think he really wanted to be involved. The deposition didn't seem like in his particularly great spirits. But again, after hearing from him, it sounded like his intentions were pure. Other than that, you can question maybe the compensation or the amount of compensation. But if that was the deal, that was the deal. But he seemed like he was not aligned with David, which is good to know. And he placed the blame, at least during the deposition, on David and Todd Chisholm from GTI Gold. So I think that's a summary. So again, feel free to reach out to Renee if you're interested. I will be attending, in part at least, the depositions of Oliphant on Monday and Markowitz on Tuesday, and sometime during the week I will report on both. If I hear anything else, I will let you know. I will certainly be following the hearing on the 14th, and I will give you an update when I hear more about the group that Renee is putting together. And with that, I will leave you be. Have a great weekend. Hope everybody is well. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon. That's it. That's all I got to say. A lot of babbling, but that's all I got to say.